Hello and welcome to today's episode of Socially Distant Discover Nature. As you can see, it is night time outside because I've had some technical difficulties and I've had to reshoot some of the episode in perpetual darkness. This is our 30th episode. I cannot believe we've been doing this over 30 weeks, and thank you if you've stuck with me. It's going to be our last, well certainly the last of this type. It's the last of the weekly episodes, and as of November we're going to move to a monthly system. So we'll have a monthly catch-up, usually at the end of the month, highlighting a few things that have been seen and potential things to look out for. That's because the St. Nick's group is going to persist in real life, so our resources will be there. The aim of today's episode is twofold, which I may or may have mentioned, depending on the edits. But firstly, I want to encourage you to go out and look for nature, and to assure you that even now, in the middle of October, in potentially really dreary autumn time, there's good stuff out there. There's encounters waiting to happen, especially on a sunny day. Secondly, the episode is kind of going to answer a question I was asked, which is, where do the birds go in autumn on bird feeders? So, around about this time of year, many people notice a little bit of a slump in birds visiting their feeders in the garden. What's going on? Well, the chances are one of the reasons is there's plenty of other natural food occurring in the wider environment, so the birds will be flocking over there rather than your bird feeders. Don't be offended, they will be back as we get into winter. What I want to cover in this episode is just some of that wild food that is out there. During our latest session at St. Nick's in person, but socially distant, we were surprised to discover that if you're a pollinating insect, there's quite a lot of flowers still out there for you to take advantage of. We spotted some late flowering tansey, which is the favourite food plant of the tansey beetle, but the actual flowers themselves are beloved by various pollinating insects, such as hoverflies. One of our group members uncovered red campion. Now, if you've watched some of these videos before, you know we recommend that as a wild flower to put in the meadows. We've also talked that it's quite a late flowering species, and I'm not sure I've seen it flower quite this late, but still, it's good that it's there. We also found teasel. Now, normally at this time of year, teasel heads look a bit kind of dead and crispy and brown, and they're a really good source of seeds, so you get birds like goldfinches landing on them to pluck out seeds as a source of food. Weirdly, because it's flowering at this time of year, but especially weirdly because the entirety of the flower is in flower. Normally when I see teasels, there's a rim of flowers, kind of circumference, it either works its way up or down or outwards, but the whole thing was in flower. Now, is this weirdness worrying? Is this a sign of climate change? Now, you can't assign any particular incident or flowering occurrence to climate change directly, but what scientists can do is study trends and patterns. In recent years, there's a new branch of science that has come into the fore, which is called Phenology, and this is the study of the timings of life cycles of plants and animals and how they change in relation to changes in the environment, particularly climate change. Sapien has a very good interview with Dr. Christine Tansey about this, so I will post a link to it in the description of this video. One of the particularly worrying effects of climate change is if the life cycles of, say, invertebrates and the plants on which they depend become out of sync. For example, I've got wild primrose flowering in my garden now in October. It's supposed to flower in early spring, February, March time. So if it's flowering now, does that mean it won't be flowering in early spring when the early emerging bees need it as a source of nectar? And will therefore those bees suffer and potentially die? This is a very complicated area of science, and one that probably deserves an entire episode along with climate change and the effects on the environment. It might be a cop-out, but I will probably save that for next year during one of our monthly catch-ups, because I'll need a fair bit of prep to make that one. However, you can assist collecting data, and people like you, citizen scientists, feeding in data is a really good thing, and there's a project called Nature's Calendar, which is run by the Woodland Trust, that you can submit your sightings of, such as the first time you see a bud on a tree, the first time it burst into a leaf, the first time there's flowering, all sorts of information that anyone who's out on their travels can send in and add to that data set. Help scientists work out what's going on, and if we can work out what's going on, that's the first step to solving a problem. So hopefully we'll cover phenology in the future, but now let's talk about those other sources of food beyond the nectar and flowers that are out and about at the moment. At St. Nick's we have a plentiful supply of apple trees that have either been planted or grown up naturally or the result of people tossing out apple cores. There's loads of them. There's both the eating apples in many varieties and also the smaller and much sour crab apples. Amazing source of food for birds. You see all sorts of birds eating them. Sometimes you can come in underneath the apple tree, there's a carpet of windfall apples and a flock of blackbirds or other winter thrushes diving on them, eating away. Great source of food. Other fruits and berries that we have are blackberries. Many of them past their best at the moment, but there's still some there that are verging on becoming ripe. Even insects will feed on these. If they start to rot or ferment, produce juices, you might get butterflies or wasps coming in to feast on those. There's various berry or berry-like objects on trees. We've got these red berries on the hawthorn tree, and these blue-grey berries on the blackthorn tree, known as sloes, which can be used to flavour gin. Don't drink alcohol, it's bad. Getting distracted, not by thinking of gin. You can't prove it. And another striking splash of scarlet colour in the autumn days are rose hips. We are particularly keeping an eye on these because sometimes in winter we get flocks of waxwing, these incredible punk-crested, peach-coloured, orange, plumpish starlings. They're not starlings, look a bit like that. They will come from Scandinavia, continental Europe, cold places with harsh winters. They will arrive starving and they will be gobbling up those rose hips. So it's a spectacular sight. And fingers crossed we do see them this year. So that's it for today's episode and also for these weekly sessions, but it doesn't have to be the end for us. No, you can still contribute, you can still send in your sightings, what you're seeing out and about on your socially distant walks. Send us your photographs to the usual address. Let us know. I do need material for the monthly catch-up, so I would much appreciate anything you can send my way. But yeah, until the end of November, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, take care, good luck looking for wildlife, and yeah, goodbye.